So my name is Sam Feltham. I'm the director of the Public Health Collaboration, and how I got into this crazy world of health and fitness and low carb and all of that jazz was that I used to be a personal trainer. I studied at the European Institute of Fitness and qualified as a master personal trainer in 2010. And then subsequently I moved to London and set up a fitness bootcamp business called Smash the Fat. And then over the next 5 years I managed to get to 10 locations around the UK, and we were helping hundreds of people if not thousands on a monthly basis obtain and maintain healthy lifestyles, and that was great, but I always felt like it was an uphill battle, and so at the end of 2015 I decided enough was enough and we have to change things from the top, and the only way that we're going to do that is by setting up a non-profit and have medical professionals involved. And so I managed to band together 12 doctors to form the Public Health Collaboration, whose mission is to inform and implement healthy decisions for better public health. And we've been doing that for the past 18 months, and to our surprise we're actually starting to change things in the UK. So it's incredible to see, and hopefully that trend continues, and before you know it, we would have changed the world.
How does the organization work? You have ambassadors, is that right?
Yeah. So we have different levels of support that people give. So the healthcare professionals that we've got on board just tend to hand out all of the free booklets and resources that we have on the website, but the way that they get informed about what we're doing is through our ambassador program. So we have 60 volunteers throughout the UK who are in different towns around the country, and they liaise with local healthcare professionals to inform them about what the PHC is, why we do what we do, and how we can help them as well. And we've been running that for just the past 3 months, and we've seen a massive uptake in support from doctors and nurses working within the NHS. And the idea is that we'll get to a critical mass of NHS employees where the higher ups can no longer ignore us and they have to change things. And fingers crossed that's sooner rather than later.
Right. Can you talk about, I know you have a conference coming up next year. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a conference every year, or have done at least for the past 2 years, which has been sold out and very successful. And thankfully next year, 2018, we have a conference on the 17th and 18th of May in London at the Royal College of General Practitioners, which is an incredible honour to run our event at such a prestigious venue. And amazingly, we've managed to convince Professor Tim Noakes from South Africa to come along, and he'll be our keynote speaker. So if you're able to make it to London in May, we'd love to see you.
Yeah, amazing. So any suggestions on how people can convince their doctors to consider a low-carb diet?
Yeah, so convincing your doctor can be relatively difficult to help them understand that a low-carb diet is actually a healthy diet, and there are usually 3 main points of contention. So the first one tends to be that saturated fat will blow up your heart. That's the usual one. The second one is usually that you need healthy whole grains and that they're essential to a healthy diet. And then the third one is that low carb is a fad and that there's no evidence at all. So dealing with the first one, saturated fat, there are two main papers that you need to print off and present to your doctor, and those are written by Dr. Zoe Harcum. They're systematic reviews and meta-analyses that show that when they first implemented dietary fat guidelines in 1977 in the US and 1983 in the UK, there was no randomised controlled trial evidence at all. So they just did it anyway, despite the fact that there was no evidence in the first place. And then she did another meta-analysis and systematic review of the evidence now. And there is still no randomised controlled trial evidence showing that saturated fat causes heart disease. And then there are multiple systematic reviews and meta-analyses of the observational data, which obviously isn't as strong, but lack of causation can disprove causation. So if there isn't a correlation there at all, then it means that there's no causation. And so those meta-analyses and systematic reviews of the observational data show that saturated fat does not correlate with heart disease at all. So you need to print off those papers, just the abstracts, highlight the conclusion and give it to your doctor in terms of the saturated fat and heart disease issue. The second one, healthy whole grains, is that there's a review that was published this year, 2017, by the Cochrane collaboration, which is considered as the gold standard of scientific reviews. And what it found is that healthy whole grains do not benefit cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, or cholesterol profiles whatsoever. So you can just say, look, in the gold standard, no bueno. And the third one is that low carb is a fad, and that there's no evidence at all for it. That's certainly not true. There are two meta-analyses, the two most recent, which show that for healthy individuals, low-carb diets show a significantly greater weight loss compared to low-fat, but they also improve triglycerides and HDL cholesterol more as well. And then for those living with type 2 diabetes, it improves blood glucose control more than a low-fat diet, and also improves HDL and triglycerides as well, significantly better than low-fat. So the scientific evidence is there in the most recent meta-analyses for that. And then the other thing that you can do is go to the PHC website, which is phcuk.org/RCTS. And on that page, we've got the 58 randomized controlled trials between low carb and low fat that have been published in the peer-reviewed journals. And of those, it shows that 0 randomized controlled trials show a significant weight loss for low fat, but 29 of the trials show a significantly greater weight loss in low carb compared to low fat. So in essence, the score is 29 to low carb and 0 to low fat. And if this was an American football game, it's called a whitewash, right? Blowout, yeah. So total blowout, and there's no question that they'd win the Super Bowl, The randomized controlled trial evidence is there for low carb, and for a disorder of carbohydrate metabolism, which is what type 2 diabetes is, and essentially all diabetes is. It stands to reason that some form of carbohydrate restriction should be implemented to combat a disorder of carbohydrate metabolism. It's logical, reasonable, and scientifically based.
Backed up by science. Yeah. I'm curious, how did you discover low-carb diet? So why did you become a practitioner?
So before I qualified as a master personal trainer, I was always into fitness, but I really got into nutrition in the run-up to my personal training course. And I was actually trying to, I was going to enter I entered the Men's Health cover competition for the UK. So they do a competition every year. I don't know if they do that anymore, but they used to do a competition every year where a reader can get on the cover of Men's Health. I was like, right, I'm going to go for it. And you know, the one thing that you do in order to get in that type of shape is carbohydrate manipulation, because what you do is that you drop the carbs very low 2 weeks prior to doing a photo shoot, and go very, very low, and then for about 2 or 3 days you'll carbohydrate load in order to blow up, basically, and at the same time you'll dehydrate yourself so that all of the water in your body goes into the carbohydrates, which is in your muscle glycogen, and so that's how you kind of blow up. And bodybuilders have been doing this since the 1800s, when the first bodybuilders came to be, that's how you find out about carbohydrate restriction. Although bodybuilders are still very much calorie counters for the most part, they still restrict carbohydrates during a cutting phase, and so I was interested in that. And then when I became a personal trainer and started to advise people the standard advice, you know, you're not getting results. And then when you find, in 2010, Gary Taubes published his second book, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It, which is the cliff notes of of good calories, bad calories. And I read that, and I was just taken aback by it, and I was like, yeah, actually we do that in bodybuilding and fitness modeling already, so why wouldn't I do that with my clients? So I started to do that with clients, and they just got results straight away. When before I was recommending the standard stuff, they were exercising with me, 3 times a week and following the standard advice, but not losing weight. So what's going on? And after recommending low carb, they start losing weight. And so it just went on from there. And then in 2013, I did these overfeeding self-experiments where I ate 3 different diets. The first one, these 3 different diets I did for 3 weeks each, with 3 months in between as kind of like a biochemical reset. The first one was a low carb diet, and after 3 weeks, I ended up in a 47,000 calorie surplus, because I was eating twice as much as I usually would, but just low carb real food. And that's after protein, fiber and exercise. And according to the calorie formula, I should have put on 6.1 kilograms, which is approximately, say, about 14, 15 pounds. And in reality, after those 3 weeks, I only put on 1.3 kilograms, which is about just under 3 pounds. And in actual fact, although I put on a little bit of weight, I lost 3 centimeters from my waist, which is just over an inch. So that was really interesting, and kind of refuted the simplistic calorie formula as we thought we understood it. And so I did this second experiment after 3 months, which was low fat fake foods, or really just a standard diet where you're having cereal and skim milk for breakfast, you have a skinless chicken sandwich for lunch, and then pasta in the evening with some fat-free yogurt. Right. And again, eating twice as much as I usually would. And after those 3 weeks, I once again ended up in a 47,000 calorie surplus, which meant a 6.1 kilogram increase in weight according to the calorie formula. But after those 3 weeks, in reality, I ended up in a 7.1 kilogram weight gain. So actually more than the calorie formula. And I actually put on 9¼ centimetres on my weight, which is just shy of 4 inches.
Wow.
And for a guy that's always been naturally slim, that's pretty damning. Right. I was like, oh my God, my six-pack's gone. What? But and I had this little food baby going on, you know. So again, after a 3-month washout period, did this third one, which is very low fat, vegan, real food. And on that one, you know, I was having oats for breakfast just with water, and then, you know, like water chestnuts and rice for lunch, and then potatoes and you know, fruit in between to really rack up the calories and stuff like that. And again, ended up in this calorie surplus, but instead of being 47,000, it was 39,000 because of the sheer amount of fibre that I was eating. So the recommended amount of fibre in the UK per day is 30 grams, but I was eating 150 grams of fibre a day, which is, yeah, my wife hated me basically for those 3 weeks. And over those 3 weeks, according to the calorie formula, I should have put on 5.2 kilograms, and I ended up putting on 4.7 kilograms. But I actually ended up putting on 7¾ centimeters on my waist, which is about 3 inches. So again, for a guy that's always been naturally slim, following a vegan diet, you know, of course, like I was overeating, but you know, I was overeating on the low carb diet and didn't particularly put on that much weight. In fact, my waist circumference decreased. So yeah, those 3 self experiments, you know, told me a lot, and made me realise that despite the fact that you can eat similar calories, if you eat different foods, you can have very different reactions, and you know, your individual metabolic condition can make a lot of difference as well. Right. So you know, if you are living with type 2 diabetes or anything like that, I'd recommend that you don't do like what I did at all. But the scientific evidence clearly shows that a low carb real food diet is definitely the first one to try.